he would have been the same as far as everybody was concerned.
Yes.
It's the same as the same as he was with the commandant officers down in Songkurai and Shimo Songkurai. He was the one that was the. There might have been a colonel or two there, but Bruce, as a major, was the boss.
Yes. Yeah.
With everybody, even the Japs. Hunto Tai, they call him. Hunto Tai.
Mm. Hunto Tai.
Hunto Tai, yeah.
Yeah.
Captain Ho. Major.
Yeah.
Hunt.
Now, when the line was finished and you came back into Thailand, did you walk down back from there, or did you come down by train?
I came down on the great train that had been built. It was quite an exciting trip and very cold. We travelled quite a lot of the way, particularly up in the heights, at night where it was bitterly cold. We came down to a large camp somewhere early in the morning, about 6 or 7 in the morning, and I was with the Colonel Harris, the senior British officer there, who told everybody that he was the champion light heavyweight boxer of the British Empire. He's the ballroom dancing champion of Great Britain. He represented Great Britain in the Davis Cup, and he was everything, the greatest of everything. And he informed me that a friend of his was running this camp, and we'd have a meal there. And I got out of the old truck, and sure enough, this was a tented camp. It was after what I had been up in the jungle for some months. It was quite extraordinary, and we had a good breakfast, and I kept reminding the colonel that it was time perhaps that I went looking to see if the train was ready to go, and he said, "Oh, Carl, they wouldn't go without me, they wouldn't go without me." And eventually about 10 o'clock I went and had a look, because there was nothing there, not a train anywhere in sight, and here we were, the Stainless Stanley and myself, AWL, in the middle of somewhere. Yeah. It took us about 2 weeks to catch up, and nobody had missed us, so it didn't matter.
And where did you catch up?
Back in Singapore. We hitchhiked on the rest of the way down. It was rather interesting, hitchhiking as a prisoner of war. Mm. But we got back to... Oh no, we didn't get back to Singapore. We went back to... I'm sorry. We went from there to Bangkok. Mm-hmm. And from there we went down by ship eventually to Singapore.
Claude Anderson was telling me that when he was actually in Bangkok after peace was declared, and he was down at the go-downs, I think you indicated that you were there.
Yeah.
Doing medicals there, but he had no medical record, so he wrote the medical record in the individual's pay books.
Ah.
So at least there was a record somewhere.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yes, it was interesting when we finished the railway and went with, I say, to Bangkok, Bangkok. Mm. We were living on under a big building, like almost a small hangar, with a BHP roof, quite a modern roof. And there we lived quite comfortably for about 3 weeks, until eventually they picked us up in some barges and dragged us out into the Gulf. There was an old tramp ship that had been bought from Britain about 27 years before, waiting to take us wherever we were going. We had no idea. And we got aboard this thing and set sail, and eventually finished back in Singapore after an interesting trip. Actually, there were some Japanese soldiers who had been fighting in Manchuria were in there to look after us. They had no love for the Koreans, and let us know that very soon. In fact, they had they made the Koreans wash up the whatever we were eating out of, whatever tins we had at that stage, very little, and made certain that the prisoners of war were better than the Koreans as far as they were concerned. There was one little Japanese officer, I was going to say this before, who could speak perfect English. He had been a professional baseball player before he was into the army. And he used to say to me, I want to see you tonight out underneath the captain's cabin, up under the bridge, which is a shocking old thing. And after talking to him for some nights, it was apparent that he had no doubt that they were going to lose the war eventually. And after about 5 nights, he said to me, "What will happen when the war is over? What will happen to you?" And I said, "Oh, well, all is well. I think I'll go back to my own country, back to Australia." He said, oh, I cannot understand that." And I said, "Well, you know, what will happen to you?" He said, "Oh, I would not be able to go back to my own country." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Oh, well, I don't know." And then he stopped and for a while, and then he said, point to a star. He said, "Do you see that star up there?" And I said, "Yes." And then pointing the other direction, he said, "Do you see that star up there?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "That's your God, and that's my God." And that's about as near as I've ever got to understand the Japanese.
Incredible.
It's quite incredible, wasn't it? Yes, remarkable. He was really a little gentleman, this fellow. Quite interesting. Actually, on that old ship, we were eating Australian beef. It was from the Singapore cold storage in Singapore. Oh. The Japs brought this out because they reckoned we'd had a bad time from it's interesting, the Jap soldiers thought that we'd had a very bad time with the Koreans, and they made the trip on that rough old thing as comfortable as they could.
Now, how long did you spend in Singapore until the end of the war in August 45?
Then I went out to see these small camps around Singapore then. I didn't go out again, fortunately. But I cut back, we were the first back into Singapore. And I remember Black Jack standing there, and he actually had tears in his eyes when he saw them. He just couldn't understand, couldn't believe that this is what happened to them. They knew that things were tough, but they didn't realise it, obviously didn't realise that things were so bad. And I remember him saying, you'll never go out on another working party, you fellows will never have to do that, but actually we all went out again at different times. Well, they had to. But it was shattered old BJ very much.
And when did you know the war was over?
Well, I went out and I finished up in a little camp on Bukatima Road, and we were digging holes, or the troops were digging holes into the hills, joining them up so that this is where we were going to retreat and fight it out. They were interesting. There were only about 5 of us in this camp, little camp, and they made us dig a cross 5 metres deep, 5 metres deep, and a creasing so that there were 1, 2, 4 openings, and we closed in the top, but those openings, the 4 openings were left, and we'd have a practice run every now and again, and we'd go down there, we'd be put down there, because this is where they were going to put us when Mountbatten arrived, with the machine guns at each end, and so that they were all ready to fight it out in Singapore. Then one mad Korean came along at one stage, completely mad, belting you up one day, and the next day terribly friendly, Tomodachi, everybody's Tomodachis, and he had a great key, an old